It was fall of 2017 when my friend Mike first told me about the strange happenings in the woods near his family cabin. Mike and I had been friends since we were kids, and we grew up together in a small town near the forest. Every summer we would spend our days exploring the trees and trails, getting into adventures. As teenagers, we started hearing rumors from other locals about strange noises and apparitions seen deep in the densest parts of the woods late at night. But we were never brave enough to investigate further. Now in our early 20s, Mike had just inherited the family cabin from his grandparents who had passed away. With the cabin now solely in his possession, he wanted to visit and check on the old place. He invited me to join, saying it would be like a trip down memory lane to relive our summer adventures from years past. I was happy to accept, wanting a weekend getaway from the monotony of everyday life. We packed our bags with supplies and gear for the weekend and headed out early on a Friday morning. The 2-hour drive passed quickly as we listened to music and caught up on the past few years of our lives. Pulling up the long dirt driveway, the cabin came into view. It was just as rustic and charming as I remembered from childhood visits. Mike unlocked the front door and we walked inside, dropping our bags in the main room. "Not much has changed," I remarked, taking in the cozy wood-paneled interior. The furnishings were aged but well kept, clearly cared for by Mike's grandparents over the decades. We opened some windows to air the place out as dust particles floated gently in the late afternoon sunlight. After getting settled, Mike suggested we take a walk around the property before it got dark. "I want to show you something in the woods," he said ominously. I grinned, remembering our days of fabricated mysteries and dares in these very woods as kids. We filled our packs with water bottles and headed out. The trees were just starting to change color, their leaves glowing vibrant shades of red, orange, and yellow. A light breeze rustled them, releasing the sweet, earthy fragrance into the air. We walked in a comfortable silence, taking in the serenity of nature. After about 15 minutes, we arrived at a large moss-covered boulder. "This is it," Mike said, nodding towards the rock. I moved closer to examine what he was indicating. Carved into the smooth granite surface was an intricate symbol, a perfect circle with intersecting lines and swirls radiating outwards. It looked ancient yet precisely etched, as if carved with care and intention rather than haphazardly scratched. "What is this?" I asked in a hushed tone, almost not wanting to disturb it. Mike shrugged. "I'm not really sure. When I was here last year, I noticed it, and it gave me a strange feeling. The locals say weird things have been happening in these woods for decades. Maybe this has something to do with it." I peered closer, taking in every detail of the mysterious marking. It was eerie yet fascinating at the same time. What did it represent, and how long had it been there, slowly weathering away with the passing of seasons and years? On our walk back to the cabin, an uneasy feeling had settled over me. The symbol stirred something primal in my psyche, like an innate reaction telling me to be wary. I tried to shrug it off as my imagination running wild, blaming the quiet ambience of the forest for igniting childhood fears. But some intrinsic part of me knew there was more to this place than met the eye. That night, after a meal of grilled salmon caught fresh from a nearby stream, Mike and I sat by the fireplace nursing glasses of whiskey. The flames crackled and danced, casting shadows that lurked in the dark corners of the room. Outside, an owl hooted mournfully into the night. "So tell me more about these strange happenings in the woods," I said, taking a sip of the smoky liquor. Mike leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair as he collected his thoughts. "Well, like I said, rumor has it weird stuff has been going on for decades. Disappearances, strange lights, animal mutilations, you name it. No one knows for sure what's causing it. Some say it's supernatural, others think it could be a serial killer or a cult practicing dark rituals out there. A lot of the old-timers won't even go into those woods at night." I felt a chill run down my spine at the mention of rituals. My mind flashed back to the symbol carved on the boulder. Any truth to the cult theory? Has anyone ever found evidence of that? Mike shook his head slowly. "Not that I know of. Just stories and speculation, really. The deeper you go, the stranger the stories get. But no one's ever found solid proof. The woods go on for miles. It would be easy to hide nefarious activities way off the beaten path. And it's so dense, easy to get lost or turned around. We fell silent for a moment, listening to the pops and cracks of burning wood. I stared into the flames, letting my imagination run wild with the sinister possibilities of what could truly be lurking in those darkened trees. Just then, a loud crack split the night air outside, making us both jump. We laughed nervously, trying to ease the tension, but unease still hung heavy in the room as the hour grew later. I tossed back the last of my whiskey for Dutch courage before broaching my next question. Have you ever been tempted to investigate further? See if you can find any clues out there. Mike glanced up, eyes dark and reflective in the firelight. Occasionally the thought has crossed my mind. I've hiked pretty deep before, but never at night. There's just something about being in those woods after dark that gives me the creeps. Like you're not alone, even though you can't see anyone. But I don't know, maybe a night hike is what we need for some real adventure. He grinned mischievously. My heartbeat quickened at the idea of plunging into the unknown dusk of the forest. A banshee howl pierced the night once more, seeming to echo our earlier conversation. A thrill of danger and mystery pulsed through my veins, awakening dormant courage I thought long forgotten from youth. What do you say we gear up and check it out? I challenged, excitement and adrenaline coursing through me. Mike's eyes glinted with the same reckless spirit we shared as children. He stood up, grabbing our empty glasses. You're on. Let me just do the dishes and we'll head out after. An hour later, we found ourselves in the gloomy twilight of the forest, flashlight beams cutting swaths through the gathering shadows. The towering trees loomed around us, their canopy blocking out most of the pale moonlight. Strange cries and rustles emanated from the undergrowth, amplified in the darkness to take on a menacing quality. I tried to convince myself they were just normal nighttime forest sounds, keeping fear and imagination in check. We hiked at a steady pace deeper into the woods, following faint game trails by the dim circle of light. Mike led the way confidently as he knew these paths well from years of exploring as a kid. I kept close behind, senses on high alert to any anomalies or clues that may appear out of the gloom. After about a half hour, we paused to catch our breath. I swept my light around, unable to discern any distinguishing features to indicate where we were. See anything interesting yet? I asked Mike, hoping he had some destination in mind rather than just wandering aimlessly. Not yet, but I was thinking we could try heading towards that large boulder formation up ahead. I've heard others mention finding strange marks or objects near rock formations before. Worth a look around at least? I nodded in agreement, and we resumed our trek. As we got closer, the hulking silhouettes of jutting boulders emerged from the inky blackness. Mike veered off the trail, picking his way carefully through the tangled undergrowth towards our destination. I followed his bobbing flashlight, struggling over gnarled roots and rocky terrain in the dim light. Finally, we reached the edge of the boulder field. I shone my light around, scanning every craggy surface for any anomalies. At first glance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, just large weathered stones nestled together in a haphazard pile. I started making my way around the perimeter, keeping the beam trained low and steady to miss any hidden depressions or crevices. That's when a glint of something caught my eye, tucked between two boulders. I inched closer cautiously, not wanting to startle whatever small creature may have left the trinket. Reaching down, I retrieved the object from its hidden niche and froze in horror. Clutched between my numb fingers was a crude metal spike, almost claw-like, with dried blood caked along the serrate edges. Revulsion and terror washed over me in waves as my mind raced to comprehend the gruesome implications. Mike, I croaked, finding my voice. You need to see this. He scrambled over, and I carefully passed him the implement, not wanting to touch it further than necessary. He stared at it aghast for several long moments before meeting my gaze.